Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress video. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to title this yet, but it is possible that I will call this video Salty Reviews with Mixtress. And this isn't going to happen very often if this begins a series of salty reviews, because I don't acquire that many decks anymore. And when I don't like a deck, it gets sent away, returned, given away, whatever, very quickly. So this isn't going to happen super often, and I'm really going to try to be respectful. I'm going to let you know exactly how this is going to go. This review is for fellow purchasers of tarot and oracle decks. This review is not for this person. There's that. Also, I'm going to start with just giving the facts, the dry facts about the deck, and then I will transition into my opinions. And I'm going to do a full flip through in this video. So once I start transitioning into opinions, I would encourage you, at least on your first, watch through of this video, because this deck isn't really getting talked about yet. So there's not a lot of videos on YouTube yet with this deck, as of when I checked like several days ago, or a week ago maybe. So yeah, if you just want to see a flip through of this deck, please mute me when I start talking about my opinions on it, because I don't want my opinions to color yours. Obviously do what you want, but I'm just letting you know what's about to happen. Dry facts about the deck first, then my opinions. But yes, there will be a full flip through, because there aren't very many right now. Okay, so this is the box. You can get this on Amazon. It's independently published, but it is available on Amazon for reasonable deck prices, at least in the United States. Okay, so that's the box. Here are the backs of the cards right here on top. Here's the inside of the top of the box. The inside of the bottom of the box is the same as this. There it is. The guidebook is short and sweet, almost 2 pages on each card with full color representation of the card at the top. And there's an affirmation for each card. It is that sort of nice glossy paper that is, just nice glossy paper. There's pretty short and sweet, like, introduction to the cards in the beginning, just a handful of pages, and then the card descriptions start on page 12, and then there's a little thing about the author in the back. Let me light my candle, actually. Okay, card stock is, it is not quite rose petal / rubber. It is, but it's almost there. It's very close to that, so it is slightly sticky matte. So I have my full, desk lamp turned on here. Okay, so this is where the opinions are going to start. Okay, so mute me if you don't want to hear my opinions. Okay, so I'm going to have to figure out how to hold it so you can see it. These cards are very, very dark. And by dark, I don't mean thematically. I mean, actually color-wise. Very, very dark. It is difficult to see the images on these cards. So that's my first critique. Oh, I didn't say, okay, if you haven't muted me yet, I'm not good at this shit, obviously. The cards are flexible. They're very shuffleable. That's fine. I don't really like the finish on the cards because it's just a little too matte because it shows your greasy fingerprints. If you have oily and or sweaty hands like I do, my hands are always oily, and I even like to like put perfume oils and stuff on before I work with decks sometimes. So it's, this is going to show, and because these cards are so dark, like your greasy fingerprints are going to show more even. Just for funsies, I'm going to turn this lamp off. Can you see the cards? I do have daylight in the room right now. I can't tell if that's better. I mean, we're getting less glare from the... Maybe I'll just turn the lamp down a bit. Okay, maybe that... I think that's good. Okay. So cards are very, very dark. And I suspect that the cards are dark in part... I mean, obviously it's an aesthetic choice, right? But I suspect that the cards are dark in part to disguise some of the flaws in the artwork. Overall, I think the aesthetic of this deck is very beautiful. However, there's a lot of source images that are the same throughout the deck, particularly when it comes to the skulls. So almost every skull in this deck is used several times throughout the deck. Like this skull right here, you will see many, many times throughout the deck. Yes, it's stylized in a different way. Like this is the only card that has mushrooms growing out of the skull. This particular skull here, used many, many times throughout the deck. This exact skull. Sometimes it's mirrored, so it's looking the other direction, but this same skull used throughout the deck. This same moon right here is used in another card, and it hasn't even been changed. It's just this same red moon. Okay, another critique with the deck. This card in particular, like just looking at the imagery, I see a pack of wolves howling at the moon, and the card is titled Blood Moon. My interpretation, just personally, of this card would be very different than what we see with the keywords. What we see with the keywords: illusion, uncertainty, confusion, secrets, egotism, narcissism. A lot of the cards in this deck have very negative, for lack of a better term, adjectives. Okay, I'm going to get into a whole thing about shadow work here in a minute, but the gist is shadow work is not... Okay, so there's a couple different interpretations of shadow work that I believe are incredibly incorrect, and they seem to be the pervasive views of shadow work. So I'm going to get on a bit of a soapbox here about shadow work. This deck claims to be a shadow work deck. The reason that I think that it claims that is because skeletons and dark colors. I think a lot of the times people will say, this skull is used many times throughout the deck too. A lot of times people will say that something is great for shadow work. In fact, 9 times out of 10 when I hear someone saying, this deck is great for shadow work, they're saying it because skeletons and dark colors. And that's it. Also, some people seem to interpret shadow work as recognizing the asshole within and deciding to accept it exactly how it is. When somebody says integrating the shadow, okay, because I want to consistently flip through the cards, first I'm going to say my critique of this particular card. Another aspect of, like, one of the reasons why I think the super dark colors in this deck were chosen, personally, is because I think the artist isn't quite, at least in terms of executing this particular deck, I don't think they spent enough time doing it. Part of that is because of all the reused source imagery. Excuse me, and part of it also is because, do you see the proportions of this person? The placement of the head is not right proportionally. It shouldn't be so far down. So a lot of the times it looks to me like it's an image that is drawn with one of the source image skulls slapped onto it. And sometimes that looks off in an intriguing way aesthetically, but other times like this, it just looks wrong to me. To me. That is my critique. Another critique, just Most of these cards have 5 or 6 keywords or phrases. I think that's a bit overkill. This is another one that the proportions look wrong to me. They might not be. It's not as bad with this one. Okay. So let me get back to shadow work. Some people seem to be interpreting shadow work, like I said, recognizing the asshole within and accepting it for who they are. That's not what shadow work is. Okay. I get angry about, because people overuse this term so much, and I think they don't, and fair enough. Like, people are going to use a term however they're going to use it, and opinions about particular terms and definitions. Like, language is an ever-evolving thing. Language changes as we use it. So maybe I need to let go of the original definition of shadow work and just accept that the way that people use it now is not something I'm interested in at all. Because recognizing the asshole within and accepting it for who it is not my vibe. I am not into assholes. I'm into people that... So what shadow work really is recognizing an aspect of yourself that is an asshole and getting to the root of why. Or recognizing a trauma within yourself and getting to the root of why. It's basic psychology, right? It's basically like when something makes you uncomfortable, you ask yourself why. And if it's something that you need to face, you face it. Integrating the shadow is facing shitty aspects of yourself or traumas from your past or just things that you don't like to face psychologically, things that you'd rather avoid, things that you know you avoid, things you know you want to bury, things you know you don't want to face. Shadow work is choosing to face those things and getting past them and evolving from them. The integration of the shadow is not recognizing that you have a darkness and then just accepting it. It's recognizing that you have a darkness and illuminating it and working through it and becoming a better person through facing those things. And you only face those things if you're ready to face those things. Like, you don't have to feel bad if you're not ready to face the shadows within your psyche. Like, you need to be in a space where you feel safe and comfortable to face those things. So facing the shadow within is not a requirement, and it's not just skulls and dark colors. Okay. So there's that. This skull also used many times throughout the deck. This one might be the most used skull in the deck. It's on the back, and it is in several images. Another issue with this deck, there is some animal energy in this deck, and personally, when I see a deck that's called Earth and Bone that has animals in it, I feel like the animals are not being respected properly in this deck. I feel like it's not... What I wanted this deck to be was like kind of a witchy, skeletons and animals, earthy deck. To me, Earth and Bone is more of a shamanistic vibe, and I'll say, through looking at the guidebook, through looking at the keywords on the cards, what you're getting with this deck... Forgive me for this comparison, but this is really truly how I see it. This is, who's the chick that used to work with Danielle Noel to make Oracle decks? Rebecca Campbell. This is a Rebecca Campbell deck with skeletons and dark color imagery. That's what I'm getting. It is... In fact, this could pair well with, like, Work Your Light or something like that. Because this one's more like scary, scary, scary starseed. Whereas, like, Work Your Light and Starseed Oracle are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful boss babe Oracle deck. You know, see, there's that skull again. Those was 2 skulls again. And some of the keywords to me, first of all, just having so many of them is confusing to me. It's not the type of oracle deck that I want, so I'm going to return it. But also, some of the keywords kind of contradict. Peaceful, harmonious, receptiveness, and manifestation. How are you going to manifest anything when you're just sitting around being receptive? I don't know. Again, some of the imagery is beautiful when you can see it. And I have pretty dim lighting in my house just in general, because I have a very old house and it can't actually handle a lot of electricity. Like I had to learn to get like, smaller wattage bulbs in my house because they would burn out if they were too high of wattage. So what I'm saying is my critiques, this deck is too dark. It shows, do you see, like I've had this deck for 2 days and I've just kind of flipped through it a few times. And it's not like my hands aren't clean. I just wash them before I press record, but little greasy fingerprints all over the place. And with a deck that's already very dark, that is even more evident. This is another proportion issue. And also why is she screaming? Why is she holding herself and screaming? Like this deck is a bit creepy, and that also is not shadow work, just something that freaks you out. Yes, sometimes something can freak you out because there's something that you need to look at there, but not every time. Sometimes something is freaking you out because there's something wrong. And it's okay to reject things that creep you out. You don't have to... Not everything that's creepy needs to be confronted. Some things that are creepy need to be run away from. And that's more the vibe that I'm getting from this deck. I wanted to show this because there's another card in this deck that shows this exact same, like, Grim Reaper. We might have even passed it already. I don't know. On the surface, this deck has some pretty imagery. Okay, again. I guess this one is a little bit more positive. There are 2 owls in this deck, and they are more positive imagery. This one's just like, why? Why are we screaming? Why are we screaming? There's that same skull again. In a cool vulture situation. Or maybe it's just a crow, I guess, with an exposed skull. A lot of the, like, wolves in this deck, that's where I'm getting sort of some disrespect. We'll get to, there's a card in here called Beast. When we get to it, I will try to explain what I'm talking about with the disrespect of the animal energy in this deck. Again, why are we screaming? I love this image, though. This skull is used throughout the deck, but this is the only time we get to see a snake. Okay, here's the Beast card. So it employs that same moon from the Blood Moon card. And the Blood Moon is another example. Let me just get that out so I can show these both at the same time while I'm talking about this. Okay, so both of these cards, I think, are showing a disrespect of animals. Like with this Beast card, we have conflict, competition, arguments, aggression, tension, oppressors. With the Blood Moon card, illusion, uncertainty, confusion, secrets, egotism, and narcissism. When I look at an image, sorry, these are both particularly dark cards, so it's hard for me to hold them so that you can actually see them. Sorry. Anyway, these cards are too fucking dark. So, do you see? This is like a combo between a wolf and a bear, maybe? In my opinion, like, this is a personal choice. In my opinion, sorry, there's like a street cleaner on the street right now. In my opinion, it is disrespectful of animals and nature, and I'm very animal oriented. It is disrespectful to show an animal in nature as an oppressor and an adversary, because an animal is never going to be aggressive towards you unless you're being aggressive towards it. It's never going to be aggressive towards you unless it needs you for food or it needs to defend itself. This is not, and seeing a bunch of wolves howling at the moon, to me, is not egotism and narcissism, you know? Again, this deck is just not for me, right? But I'm showing it to you guys so that you can see. I'm just going to try to keep this in order, so I'm going to put this blood moon card back. This deck is just not for me. And that's fine. It might be for someone else. It might be for you. It's not for me. But I want my opinion to be out there, because if I had seen a review like mine, I would have been able to avoid buying it. I do feel like some of the imagery in this is just it's dark for darkness' sake. And also that whole starseed stuff. Okay, first of all, I want to say, okay, here's that same Grim Reaper from before. Same one, exact same Grim Reaper from that other image in the deck. And also, sometimes, so keywords on the shadow card: wholeness, integration, repressed emotions, and mystery. Sometimes repressed emotions need to be uncovered, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes you're just not ready to uncover them. Pressuring someone to uncover them before they're ready. Sometimes that is the vibe that I get when people are talking about shadow work, and that's not okay. Like, that's not okay. Same skull again. And I get it from an artist standpoint, like I get what was happening here. This deck is super dark to disguise like some of the reused imagery. And I also get, I think this might even be the same moon yet again, but I get it. I get it. It happens. Okay, what was I saying? I do really like this image, but this image reminds me more of Amrit Brar, who is currently working on an oracle deck, and she's taking her time, which I appreciate. This card in particular reminds me of like, oh, I just need to wait. I need to wait until Amrit Brar comes out with her oracle deck, because it's going to be more of what I'm looking for with this deck. It might not have animal energy in it. I'm not sure, but it will be more of what I'm looking for in this deck. Sorry, I feel like I was starting a sentence before and I didn't finish it. Okay, the starseed shit, yes. Okay, so I want to be clear about, I'm going to talk about starseed shit for a second. Okay, first of all, the general idea of, so if you've never heard of this before, which you probably have, but if you haven't, when people are saying that they're a starseed, it means that they believe that they are an alien from another star or planet that chose to incarnate in this life on this earth to help humanity. It's sort of an alien angel vibe. On the surface of it, I think it's cute because we're all star stuff. Like, we're all star seeds in that sense. We are all made of old dead stars, stardust. I like, that's a thing. That's for real. So there's that. That's fine. Also, I am totally fine with whatever narratives, fantasies, magical thinking. I'm all about that. I'm all about somebody having a complicated mythology origin story within their own heads. Whatever you want to tell yourself about your past lives, about, and that makes it sound like dismissive, whatever you want to tell yourself, but I genuinely believe that whatever narratives work for you, I think you should get to have those, and I think they can be as complicated and as fantastical as you want them to be. I firmly believe that whatever we need to tell ourselves to get through the day is okay. I mean, yeah, some of that stuff needs to be confronted, like psychologically. But again, it only needs to be confronted when you're ready to confront it, because you're not going to confront it until you're ready to confront it. So no one can tell you when it's time to face your shadow. No one can tell you whether or not you're a starseed. That aside, I have an issue with, so this person's magical name is Syrian Shadow. And if you go to their website, which I think is just SyrianShadow.com, it's going to say that this person that the name Syrian Shadow was created because this person is a shadow worker from the star Sirius, I think. I might be getting the name of the star wrong. So this person, there are specific sects of starseeds, if I understand that correctly. I've never really looked into the details of that, but it's like, if you believe yourself to be a starseed from this particular star, then you have this particular, like, traits or whatever, and then from this particular star, it's slightly different, whatever. Again, if you are buying into that, and it makes you happy to buy into it, continue to do so, please. But I have an issue with someone selling their oracle deck based on the fact that I have an issue with someone claiming that as a marketing tool, saying, I am a starseed soul from the star Sirius, and that's why I have the credentials to bring you this oracle deck. I have an issue with that. I think that is not, I don't know, I find it exploitative. I find it exploitative. That's the word I was thinking of. And even just reading the back, you see, allow the Earth and Bone Oracle deck to lead you on a transformational and empowering journey. Reveal deep-rooted issues and connect with your guides. This deck contains 42 cards to bring you clarity, transformation, healing, guidance, and insight. That's a lot of, and I mean, this is normal, quote unquote, normal behavior for an oracle deck, right? To claim this kind of shit. Again, this is giving me very Rebecca Campbell, Work Your Light / Starseed Oracle vibes. Another thing that I found exploitative. Okay, page 6 on how to use this deck. It's crucial to clear these cards of any residue or remaining energy from the locations they've been and the people they've met before you can start receiving precise advice. So to me, I'm reminded again of the Embroidered Graveyard guidebook, which I still have that deck, and I like that deck. I have transformed it into something that works for me, but I did get rid of the guidebook. I think. Let me look at my shelf. Yeah, I don't have it anymore. That claim right there, I want to be respectful, but I also want to tell you my opinion. And I recognize that sometimes that is going to come off saltier than I would like it to. But, so I find this also to be exploitative. Saying that, to me, the way that I interpret that sentence that I just read from the guidebook is, if you don't cleanse these cards properly, they're not going to, so like all of these claims, being able to reveal your deep-rooted issues and connect with your guides, lead you on a transformational and empowering journey, like this tells me that this deck, it's making claims that, I mean, yes, you can get some really profound shit out of any oracle deck, but it's because you are doing the work. You are doing the work. These are just pretty images with keywords on them. The work is within you. Having this deck is not going to magically make you face all of your fears. But that wording right there is almost like absolving the deck, absolving the artist, the creator of any, like, yes, this deck will connect you to your spirit guides, but only if you cleanse it first. Just like with Embroidered Graveyard, the language was like, there was a specific ritual that you needed to do to activate spirit communication. Otherwise, you wouldn't get it from the deck. Like, this deck will put you in touch with all the spirits, but only if you activate it for that. And like, you know, there is something to say for ritual. Like, if you are a person that likes to consecrate and cleanse your oracle decks and tarot decks before you use them, for me, it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on the energy that I'm feeling from the deck. And I've never had a brand new deck have any energy in it at all. It's only, well, I guess there is an exception to that, which I will talk about in a different salty review, perhaps. But, yeah, for me, it's a case-by-case basis. Your mileage may vary on that. Like, consecrate a deck or don't consecrate a deck, cleanse a deck or don't cleanse a deck. That is up to you and the energy that you work with. And I always dislike a guidebook that tells you that you need to consecrate a deck or cleanse a deck. I don't mind when they provide examples, like this deck provides examples on how to do a sound cleansing. Or, yeah, what did it say? Like, it was sound or smoke were the two options. And it's useful. I think that is kind of has some useful information in it. The sound waves can purify your deck. Techniques for cleansing with sound range from something as simple as ringing a bell or using tuning forks to a meditative singing bowl practice. You can use the sound from almost anything to cleanse your deck. The trick is to try experimenting with different household items and see which type of sound resonates the most with you. That I like. That is useful information. And I don't think I've read in a guidebook before a description of sound cleansing. I like that. I like that that is added in there, but it's just the fact that it says you need to do that. You don't need to do that. You can cleanse a deck and put your energy into a deck just by using it. You don't need to do some complicated ritual. If you like doing a complicated ritual, by all means do it. Do it. But you don't need to. And anytime, I just find it very sus anytime somebody tells you that you need to do things a certain way. You should always be looking at someone with a side eye that tells you you need to do something a certain way. And that just, I mean, on the one hand, I could just as easily throw that guidebook out, cut off all the extra keywords on these cards, and make this deck my own, put my own keywords on it. I could do all of that. If I wanted to put that work into it, I could do it. I could make this deck my own. And I have done it before, and I probably will do it again. But I have to love it enough. So the good points of this deck, very affordable. You can order it on Amazon, so if you don't like it, you can easily return it, which is what I'll be doing. And it's a well-produced deck. It's nice. As a physical item, it is nice. And for me, with Oracle decks, I am particularly picky, though. Like, for me, An oracle deck either needs to have a specific system attached to it, or a specific system that I can put onto it, or it needs to be like pretty basic, well-rounded, vague, with just like Vintage Wisdom Oracle. It's just a deck with pretty images and one keyword on each card. It's very easy to work with, very well-rounded. So I either want a deck that's very, very simple or a deck that's very, very specific. This deck wants you to think it's specific, but it's not specific enough, and it's not well-rounded either. So this deck just falls in a space that is not for me. Not for me. Images are unique and interesting, not for me. But maybe for you, you know? This might be a great deck for you. And it's cheap, so if you want to try it out, go for it. But again, don't let anybody tell you how to cleanse a deck. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to do shadow work. Please research it on your own if shadow work is a concept that's interesting to you, because a lot of people don't know what it is. So, okay. I don't know if I'm going to put this video out there, guys. But I do, you know, I'm one of those people that I think there should be more genuinely honest reviews out there, because I think we need to take the review back. The review is not for the person that created the deck. The review is for the people that are going to be spending their hard-earned money on the deck. And even though this deck is what I would consider to be affordable, I don't remember exactly. I think it was in the $25 range, give or take $2 or $3. Like, it might have cost slightly less than, it might have been 23, it might have been 27. I can't remember. It was somewhere in that range. So this is what I would consider to be an affordable deck. But even that, like, that's still not nothing. Like, that's not something I can buy all the time. So I do think that more honest reviews should be out there. But yes, we can be respectful. We can also be respectful. I would not want I never want the artist or creator of a deck that I am being salty about to see the reviews. I don't. I would really prefer that they not. But at the same time, I can't not share my opinions about the things, the spiritual tools that I try to use and acquire in my life. I don't want to not, oh my God, my words are not coming out, but you know what I'm trying to say. I want to say how I feel, but I also am not doing this to hurt anyone's feelings. And it just is what it is with that. Like, that is a line that I'm still learning how to walk. How do I put my opinions out there without sounding like an asshole? Because a lot of my life being autistic, I have been very, very blunt about things throughout most of my life, and that can definitely come off as bitchy, shitty, asshole behavior. And I never mean it that way, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt people. So I'm trying not to do that. I'm really trying. I don't need critiques in the comments. Thank you very much. Because I will turn off comments forever. Don't make me do it. Okay. See, right there, that sounded aggressive, and I didn't mean for it to sound aggressive. So I'm just going to shut up now. Thank you for this, for being here for my salty review of Earth and Bone Oracle. Bye. Hi, okay. I had a thought. This is like a couple hours later. I had a thought that if I'm going to be telling you what not to buy for confronting your psyche, for shadow work, if you're looking for a deck that is a dark gothic aesthetic, that is, you know, helps confront some psychological shit within yourself. Instead of Earth and Bone, try Dark Mirror Oracle. Okay, hold on. I was going to look this up before I pressed record, but then I got distracted. So hold on. I'm going to, forgive me while I look this up to make sure it's still in print. Yes, okay. You can get it right now on Amazon if you're in the United States for $18. Okay, so this one, the copy on the back, is a spiritual mirror for those who are not yet shining in the light, but are still surrounded by darkness. So this one, and I did a quick read through of like the introduction in the guidebook and stuff for this deck. It doesn't say anything about shadow work. It actually kind of goes into, so, okay, I'm going to read a little bit of this. Even with all the faults of being human, it's a little cliche to see darkness as our only way to be real and true to ourselves. It's not that. Oracles are a simple tool to ask a question and receive an answer. They allow us to delve deep into the darkness of who we are and why. What changes among them is what kind of questions and what kind of answers. So then it kind of goes through, it explains the structure of the deck. So this particular deck, every card is associated with a stage of grief, which you do have to consult the guidebook to see which stage of grief. It is associated with a moon phase, which is on the sides of the cards here. And it has these different sections, the visual seed, a like keyword sentence, and a going dark aspect of the deck. So in the introduction of this guidebook, it kind of tells you a few different ways that you can read these cards. You can read these cards without going deep into your psyche if you want, just intuitively. Or you can, there's a more advanced way to read. And then it goes on to different ways you can ask questions to yourself. Questions that you don't like the answer to. Questions which force you to change. Questions which make you deal with pain and pressure. So this deck is created to help you confront psychological aspects of yourself. It is the dark mirror. But it doesn't tell you that it's shadow work. And it doesn't like force you to do that. You know what I mean? Okay, so like for example, like you've got dark imagery here, and you've got some confrontational titles on some cards. Triumph of Lies, The Temple of My Body. Like this one is very much like you can confront some shit with this. If you have some disordered eating in your life, this could be a confrontational. And this is a deck that you only go to when you're ready to go to it, right? So it does the thing that I think Earth and Bone tells you it does, but it does it much more gracefully, in my opinion. I believe this is just found art kind of shit, but it's an oracle deck, so it works for that. This one, see, Is This Me? So if you pull this card whenever you're currently in a behavior pattern that is not in alignment with who you really are, pulling this card, Is This Me, is a good question to ask yourself, right? Gilded regret. That for me speaks to me of like shopping addiction. Gilded regret. That could literally be a deck that is gilded. Alone in the world, sacrifice, the child I was meant to be. So this can confront some childhood issues should you choose to confront them. Again, if you don't want a deck like this, you don't need a deck like this. This is only a deck that I get out very occasionally when I am ready to confront some shit. I'm ready to sit down with my journal. This is not a deck that I use for clients. I don't think I ever have. I mean, if I were to use it for a client, it would be somebody that I knew well enough to know that they were ready to sort of dive deeper, you know? I mean, some of these are scary images even. This one, Colorless Angel, this one is meaningful to me because it speaks of apathy. Like, why am I not engaging with life? Addicted. Artificial heart. See, I mean, you get some sort of like kind of scary imagery. And then you get the addition of, just to show you a little bit more of the guidebook, you get the addition of, so I've put in the guidebook, it shows you the moon phases as they are depicted on the cards. I guess I could go to the actual card that we're looking at just, to be thorough here. Parasite. So the moon phase, the way that it's listed in the book is waxing crescent, because that's how it looks in the southern hemisphere. But so I added in, like, I use the moon phases as they are in the northern hemisphere. So this would be a waning crescent in the northern hemisphere. So I see this as a waning crescent card. And then you have, each card has the stage of grief. So this one, Parasite, is depression. We have the, like, a key sentence here, when the only answer to lack of self-efficiency is to cling to another one. So this is about, like, you are clinging to someone else. You are, maybe emulating someone else's behavior too much, and it's time to strike out on your own. So that's a psychological, this is a dark deck in the sense that it's confronting some psychological shit. It's not, I feel that this is a completely different vibe. And part of the reason, let's be real, part of the reason that I find this to be a completely different vibe from the other deck, Earth and Bone, is because I have spent time getting to know this deck. I have spent time creating my own sort of like conversation with this deck. I know exactly why I go to this deck. And when I bought Earth and Bone, I thought that it was going to be more of a basic oracle deck with darker imagery, and that's not what this is. But since this deck is claiming to be shadow work, then I already know I have that deck. For me, if I want to confront my own psychology, I will. 9 times out of 10, I confront my own psychology on my own, and I don't actually need this deck to do so, but this deck sometimes has been a part of that process for me. Because it actually does that. It deals with more difficult psychological concepts in a way that leads you to ask questions of yourself. Plus, I like this art style. People bitch about the way that the cards are formatted in these little frames, but I really like it, actually. Anyway, so this is what I would personally recommend if you're looking for a deck with darker artwork that does confront you psychologically. Because it actually is quite interesting. Like, just to give you an example. It's kind of a smaller deck. I think it's only 36 cards. It's much better cardstock than Earth and Bone. Also, that's obviously a matter of opinion. Okay, so what dark mirror? What is a psychological concept right now within ourselves that we could choose to confront? Obsession. Wow, that's pretty great, right? Because you might even be here because of obsession. You might be here because you have an obsession with buying too many tarot and oracle decks and you were thinking about Earth and Bone. Yep, okay, I just kind of want to prop it up a little bit without having to hold it. Nope, that's not going to work because ring light. Sorry, I can't really zoom in unless I change the configuration of my tripod right now. I can move it a little closer though. Perhaps. Get it out of the ring light. Okay, obsession. So let's read just as an example of what this guidebook can bring you. Card number 3. So the moon phase, if you're in the southern hemisphere, is waxing crescent. If you're in the northern, it's waning crescent. The sort of key sentence is, there is nothing else that can replace my focus. The stage of grief is denial. The visual seed, an elven face, the hair entwined with bark and thorns, stares at a blank, clear, empty, round mirror. So nothing is reflecting in the mirror. Your obsession is not actually bringing you insight, is what I would take from that. Another key sentence, all things lead to one, and then they disappear into one, until only that one remains. I will say this guidebook can be a bit... It definitely wasn't originally written in English, and it's a Lo Scarabeo, so there are other languages in here. So it's possible that the original language it was written in is in here, and it maybe is more clear in that language, because sometimes you're reading it and you can tell this is not, but it's interesting. It's the way that it's written is kind of poetic. It leads you to, it doesn't answer all the questions for you. It leads you to asking more questions of yourself. Whether that's intentional or not, I do think it is slightly intentional. Because this is a deck, even in the introduction, it kind of tells you that this is a deck that provides you with opportunities to ask yourself more deeply probing questions, right? So, okay, so then we have the going dark paragraph. So I will read that just in the interest of like a thorough representation of what this deck can bring you with its guidebook. We chase comets and mirrors and shadows. Sometimes we actually chase cars or myths. Obsession is a trick of our perception. Many become one. And that one bloats as to take everything else. It feels like it, whatever it is, an idea, a person, an objective, an object, I think is probably what that meant. It feels like it, whatever it is, an idea, a person, an object, flavors our life and gives meaning to it. As all the light through a lens, it converges on a single point, and that point goes ablaze under the greatest fire. And in truth, more than enacting our life, it numbs our attention to the rest. It makes us feel more awake by hiding the rest of the world under a cloud of slumber. Obsession is a drug. In small doses it whips, in big doses it kills. If we drown inside an obsession, we should close our eyes. We don't die in the darkness. We just fall asleep, and then we can wake up more naturally. So some of that feels a little like word salad, but I think this deck is useful as a dark mirror. I think it does. It can do. If you put the time and effort in. Again, if you pull a card from this deck and you're just like, and you read the weird guidebook, and then that's it, then you're not going to necessarily get anything out of it. You're going to think it's silly. Maybe. But you could sit down with your journal and be like, okay, what am I obsessed with? What for me is blotting out all others? Like, this little glowing orb in her hand could just be a smartphone screen, right? It could just be something that we are completely being sucked into that is blotting out the real issues in our lives, right? I think that this, okay, so what oracle decks are? What are oracle and tarot decks? They are a visual seed that if you put the work in to interpreting the symbolism for yourself, realizing what emotional reactions you're having to either the symbolism or the guidebook definition or what you view to be the meaning of the card, if you work to ask the right questions of yourself, answer the questions within yourself of why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting to whatever it is, it is always an opportunity to have a dark mirror or just have a mirror in general. That's what the cards are. That's what all oracle and tarot cards are. They are a mirror. And when you're looking into them, the reflection is what do you see in this image? What do you think it means? Why do you think it means that? If you're reacting adversely to a particular type of imagery, why are you reacting adversely to it? These are all questions that you can ask yourself, but you don't have to. And personally, I think that this deck, if you were thinking to yourself, I want an oracle deck with dark gothic imagery that helps me confront the dark side of my psyche. Or if even you're thinking, I want to do shadow work. I think that this deck provides a better opportunity if you meet it where it is. Like, you have to actually do the work. It's not just going to solve your problems for you. You have to do the work. But if you do the work, I think you could get something out of this deck. That's my personal opinion. Because, again, I'm biased because I've already worked with this deck. I have had this deck for about 4 years, almost. I got it sometime in 2019, and initially, I wasn't feeling much from it. I gave it to a friend, and she had it for a good year or so, and then she didn't like it either. She gave it back to me, and at that point, I was ready for it. At that point, I made a bond with it that it's still only one that I get out every once in a while. It's, it's not a huge part of my daily practice or anything like that. But sometimes I'm ready to look into the dark mirror that this deck can provide. And when I'm ready for that, when I've got my journal, I'm ready to look into that. It is helpful for me. So, I'm not always going to be able to do this when I have a salty review, but whenever I can, I would like to provide an alternative that I think does the job better. So in this case, if you're looking for shadow work, dark imagery, I personally would choose Dark Mirror over Earth and Bone. It's a good like $5 to $8 cheaper. It's been around forever. You could probably even find it used on eBay for even cheaper than $17 in some cases. That can happen. I mean, probably not, actually, with shipping costs and all of that shit. You probably would find a used version of this deck for the same as you could get it new on Amazon. But again, you could easily return it too if it didn't work for you. And obviously, mileage may vary. A lot of people, in fact, might choose this deck over this deck, because I've heard mostly negative things about this deck. But I personally find it to be useful. And yeah, okay. Now, at this point, this video is like over an hour long, so I'm going to really shut up now. Thank you. Bye.